Pat Kelly, Member of Parliament for Calgary-Rocky Ridge, member of the Conservative Caucus. Why did I run for political office? Well, I've had a lifelong fascination with national issues, Canada's national institutions, and a real passion for the people of Calgary. And I ran for Member of Parliament in Calgary-Rocky Ridge to take that passion to Ottawa, where I do my best to be a voice and an advocate for the people of my city, the people, especially the northwest suburbs, where I've lived most of my life, and my province. During my time as an MP, I've had quite a few different responsibilities, and I spent quite a bit of time as the critic for the National Revenue Agency, and I've spent some energy, including a couple of bill motions that we put through in the House of Commons around the fairness of how the agency treats Canadians. I think probably the proudest moment in that time was when my colleagues and I were able to get the agency eventually to reverse itself on a decision that the government had made to deny the disability tax credit to a number of disabled Canadians, mostly type 1 diabetics. They spent months doubling down on this decision, which had real consequences for many disabled Canadians. They lost access to supports because they were suddenly told that they didn't qualify for this credit, and it was sustained pressure from my colleagues and I. I was the critic for that file at the time, but eventually the government reversed itself. So you can make a difference on all kinds of different things in different ways from time to time, even as an opposition member of Parliament. I think the same thing that motivates me to go to work every day is the same thing that's motivated me as a political activist back when I was 18 years old. I mean, I have a real passion for politics, and every day I get up with a responsibility to do my best to hold this government to account, to be a government in waiting, and to serve people in my constituency. So I've been doing that as an activist since I was in high school, and now that I'm a member of Parliament, it still motivates me every day to get up and go to work in the House of Commons. After I became an MP, I had my eyes open pretty well before I was elected. I think I understood the job fairly well, but what you can't appreciate until you've been elected are the extent to which the practice and rules and procedures of Parliament sort of affect what you do, and the tools that are available to an MP. So parliamentary procedure is something that no normal person would learn or have exposure to in their day-to-day life. It's a very specialized sort of bit of knowledge. So the actual practice and procedure of the chamber itself, and how how the on a day-to-day basis the different levers you have and the different tools that are available to you as an MP within the parliamentary standing orders and practice was something that was new to me when I became an MP. Members of Parliament work across party lines more often than most Canadians probably think. So I've worked across party lines with MPs from other parties many times, on many different occasions, usually around committee assignments. So MPs on committee will often work together to try and achieve something that's common to everyone's agenda. But I think of a few in particular. In the majority parliament of the 42nd Parliament, we had a situation in my committee where the government was not adequately funding the Office of the Auditor General, which is an important accountability. There's a really critical accountability aspect to it. It was unprecedented, actually, and I found I was able to work with the government party MPs that were on that committee, and we really jointly were able to apply pressure to the government, and we were not actually entirely successful in that, but the point was I was able to find commonality around government party MPs that were opposed to something that their own party in government was doing, and to work across party lines to try and do what was right for Canadians and for Parliament as a democratic institution. So what are the challenges to democracy? Well, democracy has been described as the worst system of government, except for all the other systems of government that have been tried from time to time. And so I think that people generally, almost universally, agree with that. If people stop believing that that is true, that's the real threat and the challenge to democracy. And that threat and challenge has always been there. I think it is critical that our national our institutions, our parliament, and our governments have to be responsive to people, and it's a constant challenge to ensure that our democratic institutions are responsive to the needs of people, to maintain that given assumption that democracy is in fact the best system. I sometimes am concerned about the kind of descent of political debate into entertainment, where the clever 10-second or 20-second social media clip takes on more importance or significance than substantial debate. I think that challenge and trend has been there for many, many decades, but really the main challenge is to ensure that our institutions actually are responsive to the needs of people. What gives me hope for the next generation? Well, I actually think that the next generation is just like all the generations before. It's a fairly old assumption that the next generation is apathetic and maybe isn't concerned about democracy and civic engagement, and yet, I think that today's young people are probably not much different than their grandparents were when they were young, and as you get older, there is always a tendency, I think, to get more engaged in public life, whether by voting or by getting involved in politics. There are plenty of younger people that are very politically engaged today, and so I think that I'm very hopeful for the future, and I think that today's young people are a lot less different than young people in the past than people might think. What piece of advice for my 16-year-old self? I don't know. I think I might tell myself some of the same things I'd tell my 52-year-old self. Have patience with those with whom you disagree, and do not take disagreement with others personally.